to conservation, the role of divers in coral reef restoration. Scuba diving grants us the extraordinary privilege of witnessing the vibrant and beautiful underwater world. But with this privilege comes a duty to ensure that these ecosystems thrive for generations to come. Today, we will explore how divers can transform from passive observers to active stewards of the ocean, bridging the gap between recreation and conservation. We are honored to have these incredible advocates for the ocean with us today. Anggar Esetiti, who is the project manager and coral instructor for Gaia One.
Hello.
Who will share insights on community-led conservation and sustainable diving practices. Marco Bassaroli, marine biologist and underwater photographer, also from Gaia One, who will dive into the science behind reef degradation and restoration.
Hello.
And also Alvin, Chief Programs Officer from Reef Check Malaysia, who will discuss citizen science and how divers contribute to global reef monitoring.
Hello.
Together, we will uncover practical ways the diving industry and individuals can pivot towards a more eco-conscious practices, because every dive can be a force for good. So, it is said that we are set to lose up to 90% of all coral reefs in the ocean in the next 30 years. And some scientists even say that they believe that in 100 years, the only way that we will see coral reefs is in the aquariums. But before we can protect the reefs, we need to understand what is threatening them. And I'm gonna start with a few questions for our panel, and then we'll dive right into a little bit more. So first off, for Marco, why are coral reefs critical to both marine ecosystems and human communities, and what makes them so vulnerable today?
Coral reef is a critical ecosystem for the ocean. Even if they cover only a small portion of the ocean floor, only 1%, they offer house for 25% of all marine species. And especially in area like the Coral Triangle that include Malaysia, this environment is even more critical, because if they're going to disappear, all the marine life of this area is going to be affected, not only the one that is living on the reef, but also the more pelagic one, because everything is connected. And unfortunately, the coral reef are under threat from so many fronts at the moment due to the human activity. And people think the coral reef are like fragile organisms and they just die for no reason, but actually there's so many stress for at the moment coming from climate change, pollution, plastic, and human activity, destructive human activity. And if we don't stop and we don't together act to mitigate this impact, we cannot expect the coral to survive.
All right. And Alvin, how do you think can recreational divers shift their mindset from just diving to actively participating in conservation?
This is an interesting question. Actually, I think the mindset has once. Okay. Oh, was it not working earlier? Okay.
Go again.
All right. So I think that's interesting, right? Because the mindset has shifted once already. When I started diving, this is like more than 20 years ago, the people who got into it because they loved the environment. They wanted to know more, they wanted to explore, we wanted to learn the name of the fish, we wanted to come back and go through the books and find out what we just saw. But this has changed, right? Now it's more about us being in the water, having photos of us with the dive gear in the water so that you can have a nice photo on Instagram looking all cool in dive gear. Right, so I think that's one big change that I've noticed. Very often you go to a dive shop after a dive and they're not even pulling out the books to go through and talk about the dive. It's more like, hey, did you get that picture? Yeah, can I see? Okay, send it to me, yeah? Tag, right? So we need to change that, yeah? We need to get them to realize, to want to know about the environment, and they are taught This mic is annoying me. So if we are taught from the time they're doing their open water course, right? If they are taught properly, like, look, we're going in as explorers. We're going to go look at the reef. We're going to go learn some fish. Yeah. Then I think there would be this interest, and until there is that interest, they're not going to care about taking care of it, right? So until we can build that interest, get them to understand what's down there, what's going on, I don't think they would want to get involved in conservation if we can't do that.
Okay, I hear you. So we heard from Marco about the importance of coral reefs, and then clearly we understand that there is a correlation between, divers wanting to be part of or experiencing the underwater world from Alvin. And Angar, what is the one overlooked action that divers can minimize to minimize their impact on reefs during every dive? What do you think?
So I feel like everyone should actually take into an account for not taking everything for granted, because as we sat down now, or like actually people are going around through every single booth here in the dive center, they always will ask like, what can we see, or what's special about the dive site and all of these things. But you should probably understand also that it shouldn't be taken for granted. All of those places where you find that it doesn't really seems interesting, or it seems to be like very polluted, or all of these things, it's because it's been neglected. It's been taken advantage of. So when you see like some other dive sites where it's full of people, where they do their training, they don't really train their buoyancy properly, or they just do all of this, you can actually see the damage that's been done. So I feel like every single diver has to actually change their attitude, that every single time that they went outside, when they go diving, yeah, it's great, it's nice diving. And I've been hearing comments about people saying that, oh, I've been diving for 20 years, nothing has changed. And I'm like, yeah, because you always pick after the good one. But what about those that's already been destroyed, and it wasn't like that years or decades ago, So I think it's definitely the attitude of you getting into the water that needs to shift it, that not taking things for granted. So yeah, definitely take a better training for diving, and also be more educated to like the local regulations or stuff like this, because you as a customer or the dive operator, you actually have the chance to actually change something or say something at least.
Yeah, I hear you. So as you mentioned, awareness is the first step, but action is what creates change. So how do we move from I care to I will help? Whether it's joining a coral nursery project, adjusting our diving habits, or enrolling into a conservation course, the small steps do add up. So our panelists have seen firsthand how ordinary divers accomplish extraordinary things. So let's hear a little bit from them about this. I would like to talk to Angar a little bit about how do you engage local communities in coral conservation, and why is the involvement essential?
So I think it's more like not really involvement. Like for me, it's us that actually involving ourselves in the community itself, and what we want to have the local community to do, it's basically just kind of like opening their path to do the thing.
The wolf, she cries at night. A breath had born in the black wind where the shadows lie. Deep inside despair, our hearts grow fierce, our minds aware. We carry on, oh, we carry on.
It's not us needing them to do this, but actually this is what they should be doing on daily basis, or like a small things that they can start doing. Like for example, we kind of like giving the awareness of which fish is not supposed to be fish, which one is more, sustainable, or all this, or the way that they fish should be like maybe adapted to some other way. So this is a small step that we can actually get to have them involved in.
And did you find it challenging whenever you organize any community-led activities or initiatives? Like, were there a lot of challenges from the community?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the hardest part is actually changing a habit. Habit is something that we've built not just in one day. It's a years long of activity, and it's never been comfortable to change a habit. And yeah, this is basically the practices that they've been doing for years. So of course, to shift their practices over one day, it's not a thing. So of course, this is like taking a small step that not very obvious at the time, but then over time, with persistency, I can actually see that the behavior and also the habit also changes.
Cool, thank you. Alvin, I would like to know, how does Reef Check empower recreational divers to contribute to scientific monitoring? Because essentially that's what Reef Check is about, right? Allowing and teaching us how to assess the reef.
Yep, exactly. So that is one of the core programs that we run, where we teach recreational divers how to monitor the health of coral reefs by recording certain indicator species. Yeah, and the whole logic behind this is because we have very limited marine scientists around. So, for example, like in Malaysia right now, we cover around 330 sites around the country, but we only have 20 staff. Yeah, so it's impossible for Reef Check on our own to cover these sites. But because of this large pool of volunteers, we are able to go out to these sites annually and monitor the health of these reefs. And that data is then shared with government agencies, with universities, so that people in power can make informed decisions. But it also tells us where we can focus our efforts, right? We can't do everything everywhere. So this kind of information comes back, and then we know, like, oh, look, something's not right there. Yeah. And the great part about this is this kind of approach allows us to build a network. So we work not only with recreational divers, but with a lot of different groups as well. So, for example, like y'all, right? Y'all are now doing the surveys in Bira in South Sulawesi. Whereas before this, no data was coming from that part of Indonesia. Yeah. And then we work with, for example, we've got Bubbles here, we've got Tengah Island Conservation, we've got Scuba Junkie, we've got Track, we've got a lot of many groups that have also gone through this similar kind of training, and now they are doing the same standardized monitoring, and now they are feeding into not only data for a national level, but something at an international level as well. Yeah. So again, if it wasn't for this large pool of divers, there would be no way for us to get this kind of information. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And you mentioned about all these data that people are collecting. What is the most surprising data trend you've seen from the diver collected reef surveys? Like, if maybe you can share a little bit.
Surprising. Oh, okay, I don't know whether I should say it's surprising, but I guess one of the very worrying information, yeah, is, for example, like how badly hit reefs were hit during the 2019 tropical cyclone Pabuk. Because we went back and it was crazy. Some of the reefs, the coral cover had dropped about 40%. Yeah, and then again, for many people, they wouldn't even realize that, because it happened during the monsoon. Most of the dive shops were closed, right? So they wouldn't even have recognized that happened until they came back after the monsoon. Another worrying thing would be, for example, last year during the bleaching, right? We knew, yes, it's bleaching. We saw its colors are turning white, but to then go down and do the survey and come back and look at the data and see, like, wow, we lost 40% of reef in this 1 year's bleaching event. Yeah, so this is something that's very troubling. It's becoming something that's happening more frequently, and the intensity is also increasing. So it's of great concern. But yeah, we are also at the point where we kind of know what we can do to help the reefs recover faster, right?
All right. So Alvin, you brought up the storm and also the mass bleaching. So then it kind of ties into my question for Marco. How does climate change complicate restoration efforts, and how do you think divers can help build this resilience?
Yeah, so when we talk about coral now, it's really common to associate it with like the topic of climate change, because it's one of the leading cause of like reef degradation that we see around the world, and especially in the past few years. Massive bleaching events are getting more and more frequent, and the reef, they don't have even the time to recover from one, that the next one is already happening. And unfortunately, climate change is something that is kind of frustrating even to observe from a standpoint, from a coral conservation and coral restoration project, or like because it's like we don't have control. It's like climate change or global warming, like all these names imply that it's like a global event, and we cannot tackle it at local level. So when a bleaching happens, as Alvin said, the only thing we can do is like watch it and record the damage, but we cannot really solve why other things like fish bombing, pollution, all these things, we can try to do something to stop them. Climate change, we really need to realize that it's a global problem, and we need to solve it at global level. So we need to act as a human species finally, and realize that in this planet there are no borders, no I'm doing something and it's affecting only me, and you do something and it's affecting everything, is connected. So, and especially the divers, us as diver and the diving community, they should be the first ambassador and the first like witness to this problem and to spread the message. Because unfortunately, somebody said you don't protect what you don't love, and you don't love what you don't know. And we cannot expect that people that never dive are going to be the first one to take action to protect the reef. We are the ambassador. We are the one that see how beautiful is this kind of environment, and we are the one that see how destroying are the action that we are taking outside of the water. And we need to report, we need to keep pushing, keep spreading the message, and make sure that like this revolution start from the bottom, because we cannot expect something to start from top. There are too many problems, too many like interests involved in this, so need to start from the ground, and we need to involve local community and normal people, and understand that small action can have a big impact if everybody do it. So you don't need to save the reef, you don't need to join a coral restoration course. You can save the reef in your everyday life by taking by making small step and small change in your routine, that in the long run they're going to have a big impact, especially if you involve all the people that you know in this kind of like practice.
All right. So we talked a lot about how divers can help make a change or cause an impact, but do you, and then, you know, we're at this dive expo and there's lots of dive shops and lots of resorts here. Do you guys think that they can, like dive resorts, dive shops can better integrate conservation into the business models? And we can like everyone talk about it.
Yeah, one thing, just sorry, I have the microphone, so I don't give it to you. So yeah, one thing is like, unfortunately, like I see, because Sky One, we are a core restoration, but we also have a diving center, and I understand that it's hard for like a diving center to post about like bleaching, about fish bombing, because you don't want to make a bad publicity for your diving destination. You don't want to say, okay, here we have fish bombing, here we have bleaching, and the coral is dying, because it's bad for the business. But unfortunately, it's something that we must do. We cannot keep hiding and always showing the good and no, everything is fine and no worry, there are people that do coral restoration. Coral restoration is not going to be the solution. We can plant 1 million coral a day and it's not going to solve the problem, because if you have like a floating bathroom, you don't start to take out the water without closing the tap. First, you need to solve whatever is causing the coral to die, and after you can expect to restore it. And as I said, if people don't know the problem, you cannot expect people to take action. So yeah, of course, diving centers should promote like safe diving practice and conscious diving practice, but they should also tell the hard truth that there is a problem underwater, and it's not everything is fine. It's not fine.
I think that's a very good question. Okay, very often the dive shop or the dive industry is separated from the marine ecosystem community, right? And that shouldn't be the case, because yes, it's very often outsiders who are not from that location who have come up and set up a business, but they are very dependent on that business, right? So they should be looking at it as that they are part of that community and they are partly responsible in managing that natural resource, okay? And if you really look at it, this is something that is becoming more and more mainstream. Greenfins did a survey in 2023 with 1,200 people from 120 countries, and 70% of divers said they are willing to pay more to dive with environmentally conscious operators, and 90% said they think all that dives should be involved in conservation. So if you see it from that point of view, like the demand from the demand from the public, it seems to be going towards that way, right? So dive centers should really definitely be doing something more when it comes to conservation.
And Unger, do you have anything to add to that?
I would like to add some stuff, because the thing is that it's not just coming from the divers, but I think it's also coming from the professionals. And I've been in the industry in Indonesia, and you heard a lot about diving in Indonesia. I've been in the industry for over 8 years now, and I got to see a lot of different practices that's not exactly what we should be doing. And I feel that it's really important that every single dive center take an accountability on like what their dive guide's doing, because you know the terms of monkey see, monkey do. This is basically like what happened. If your instructor are being okayed with things that you're not supposed to do, of course the student will actually carry on these practices along the way. And you as an instructor, you are as a dive master, you are kind of like a representation on how are the professionals should behave. And with the way that if and every dive center putting on more, not pressure, how to put it, like more regulations to like how they should be guiding people underwater, and certain thing they should be doing or should not be doing, I think they need to be pretty more strict to that, because then it could be like, it could be more than helpful, because you got to actually say no.
All right, those are all very good points. I did want to bring this question up as well. Alvin, as you know, you had a big impact in ensuring that a second airport was not built in Tioman Island, right? I mean, everybody knows this. What is your advice for divers who want to advocate for policy changes to protect the reefs?
I think when it comes to things like policy and all, very often we need to really go through the correct channels. Yeah, very often what happens is you can get angry and shout and make noise on Facebook, but that's not going to help, right? Like for example, if you know something's a problem, and like Marco said earlier, find the root cause, find out which department does that come under, whose jurisdiction is that, So it needs to be very coordinated, it needs to be well thought, and it needs to be done. I always say tell people, don't think with your feelings, right? Think with your brains, Because very often that's what happens. People get upset, they shout about it, they make a comment, but it's not enough. But if, like you said, if somebody was not happy with a certain policy, with a certain thing, and if they took it up the right channels, they complained to the right ministries, they complained to the right politicians, the right officers, then yes, you can see action being taken, right? So that is very, very important. You need to think it through and work through the channels that are there. Yeah.
All right, that's Krill. So we know that each of the organization, Reef Check, Gaia One, has a strong emphasis on getting divers certified so they can contribute to restoration. And I felt like I would like you all to speak a little bit about what you do and share a bit more about these programs. We can start with Unger first. Can you tell us more about the coral reef restoration course that you teach under the Ocean Gardener syllabus, and what makes it a unique course for divers to join?
So basically, in the course itself, it's not just talk about corals, but also talk about the ecology of it and what's in it in general. So basically, threat to corals is something that also we spoke about widely, and we actually taking our interns to do all of this, what we call reef maintenance. So basically, it's something that you can do during the dive. So basically, we have, for example, we have a coral threats called Drupella snails. So once you can actually identify this, anytime you go on the dive, you can actually also pick up some of these snails. But obviously, without having the trainings done, I can't really tell you like take any snails, you know, in the ocean. Obviously, it's not what we're trying to do. And so it's basically giving you the tools to be more involved, like in every dive that you can actually do. It's more like contributions every time you're diving, and then you already have the tools and the knowledge, so then you can actually apply it to your onwards dive plan.
And Marco, you teach this underwater photography course as part of Gaia One's monitoring syllabus. Do share with us how this course is beneficial for divers who want to contribute to restoration efforts.
So yeah, during the coral restoration course, we also have like introduction to underwater photography. I think it's interesting to teach this skill to people that do this course, because when you take a picture of something, as I said, it's part of the process. You start to care more because you have a subject, so you kind of create a connection with the whatever you're taking the picture of, and you are willing to take a good picture. So a good picture is like require a healthy subject. Also, one of the first things that I tell people to take, that I teach people to take picture of, are coral. First of all, because they're easy subject, they don't move, so it's easy for practicing. But also because you show the people how interesting they are, because most of the time they look at them from far away. But if you look close, you find all this like interesting structure, interesting pattern, this contrast of colors, and you can create really nice shot, really interesting shot. And people are always amazed, like how something that they always have under their eyes, they never realize like how amazing they are. And after, like when you progress, you start to take pictures of other things, and the ocean became your canvas. So you want it to be nice and healthy, and so you're more prone to care for it and protect it. And also, with your picture, a video, a reel now is like a really powerful medium to convey a message. One viral reel, I would say, unfortunately, it's more efficient than like maybe us doing a lot of like work, but nobody knew about it. While with you have one viral reel, your project can touch people from all around the world. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's very true. Social media has had a big impact on many big projects at the moment, I think. And I think it is one thing that more conservation projects are moving towards as well, to sharing this knowledge. Alvin, Reef Check has a program called Reef Check Eco Diver Training, which 3 of us had the opportunity to learn from you. I realized that I don't know how to identify sea cucumbers. Can you tell us more about this and why it's important for divers to join this training?
So the Eco Diver course basically teaches you how to identify the indicator species that we count on the reef check survey. And then it teaches you how to do the method, how to go down and do these surveys, right? Now, this is an interesting course because you're going to do it to then go out and help to collect data so that other people can use that information. So what the diver themselves personally gain out of this is added understanding of the reef, of what they're seeing. Yeah, and this is something I've noticed with many eco divers. After the course, they say like, whoa, I am not going to be able to not think about sea cucumbers when I dive anymore, right? Oh, now now this makes sense. Now I know what the algae is doing on the reef. Because, and again, this is something I also often get from dive professionals. And it's not something you learn during your dive master or your IDC, which is, how to make sense of what you're seeing, right? Whereas this course, it will teach you to make some kind of sense. Like, look, what are you seeing? Yes, there's very little hard coral. There's some soft coral. There's a high amounts of algae on this reef, right? There's rubber. So it will help you not only identify more things in the water, but then make sense of what you're seeing in the water. Yeah. So this is, I think, what the most rewarding thing to the participants are.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I like the fact that, all three of you talk about different courses, and it kind of touches on different interests of people as well. People who might be interested in a more practical course, then they can do the coral restoration course. Those are more interested in survey or understanding the reef can do the eco diver training. And those who love underwater photography can expand their knowledge and assist projects on all the data that they collect through that as well.
I want to add something. Is, as Alvin said, it's kind of surprising. Like, divers spend most of their time underwater, but it's surprising to notice how little they know about it. Even like people with thousands of dive professionals, maybe they know everything about the new side mount and how to set it up, but you point at a coral that they see every time that they dive, I don't even know that there's an animal. So it's kind of like show there is a lack of pushing this kind of knowledge from training agency, from diving center, and it's equally important to know your equipment because it's what keeps you alive underwater, so I don't say, but I think there should be way more energy spent on like teaching people since the basic course of what they're going to see and how is important this environment that they're going to witness underwater, and not just something that is people doing whenever they feel or when they are bored with, because they already did everything else. So now, only now, you start to learn about the environment. Should be the opposite. Should be the first thing.
That's a fair point. Maybe we should let Paddy and SSI know. Are they here listening? No.
The great beef.
Okay. So I would like to ask each of you, how important is the role of divers in coral reef restoration or protection? And what are your hopes for divers will do after listening to this panel? Maybe Unger first? Yeah.
I'm just hoping that the very first thing that I mentioned is that raising an awareness. So I hope that once that you, like whoever's been listening has the awareness, have taken the action to not taking things for granted and actually trying to contribute in every possible ways every time they choose for diving, whether it's choosing the provider who are raising this kind of like awareness or spreading the same kind of messages, or picking or doing things that has the direct impact to the oceans itself.
I would say I think it is very important that divers get involved. I think they have a big role to play. There's not enough NGOs, not enough hands to do all that we want to do. And I would encourage all those that are listening to go visit the NGO booths around and find out how you can get involved and help.
Yeah, I would say, as Alvin said, get involved, help, because unfortunately there is not a lot of money in conservation. I think that any kind of NGO is struggling, or like conservation association is struggling, because it's cool, but after, like, nobody want to spend money with it, because at the end it's something that doesn't create profit. It's like you do just to maintain something good, but everybody can get advantage of it, but effectively nobody get money from it. So for this, like, all this association, this entity, they need help, and the best way is to support them, to join their courses, and like to share their message, and they share their reel, all these small things, they can help them to stay afloat and keep doing what they're doing, because unfortunately a lot of them, they start, there is a lot of passion, but after, like, the passion tend to die out when you see that you struggle with finance, and people need to survive, and they cannot survive only of compliments and like online. And yeah, and also remember that even if you economically cannot support, like, just small action that you take in your everyday life, not only when you dive, but even when you're out of the water, they're going to have an impact. And as I said, try as much as possible to spread all the knowledge that you get. Don't keep it for yourself. Spread it with all the people that you know. Be vocal. If you see somebody that do something that is not good, try to educate them. Don't attack people, but try to educate and explain to them why it's not good, because, like, this is how we're going to get a change. When everybody is working together, we cannot expect that few people are going to solve this problem.
All right, all valid points. So we still have a couple more minutes. I thought I would open up to the floor in case anyone had any questions for our panelists. This is your opportunity to ask them in public. Of course, you can find them later in private too, but if you would like to ask them anything, did anybody have any questions? Before I start calling your names, maybe put up your hands first. I recognize some people on the floor. No?
Okay, we were really
Yes?
clear.
Sorry.
We are very clear.
They were so clear that they have no questions. All right. So that means I will see you all in Tioman and in Bira for the courses that they run. Well, yeah, I think, did you guys have any last statements before I wrap it up? And, well, we're really on time. Okay. Thank you very much for everyone for today's panel. If anyone is interested in speaking to our panelists, you can find Reef Check at the NGO Pavilion. That's right? Yes. And also Gaia 1, we do have a booth today. We are at B17. I hope that today's panel makes us realize that small changes matter. And you know, a lot of us are here, we're going around looking for dive trips, we're going around like, oh, you know, where can we go? What's a new thing we can see? But I also would like to encourage you to maybe, wherever new place you go, have a look and see, is there a conservation program there? Is there a day that you can take out of your diving trip to do a conservation dive, a cleanup dive, a beach cleanup, a coral planting, a maintenance? I mean, all of this really helps. And remember that we are ambassadors for the ocean. It's really important that as divers, we take this extra step into conscious diving as well. And it's not just about, oh, let's go fun and let's take a picture, let's go somewhere new. But remember that without the reefs, there's no diving. So thank you so much, everyone, and hope to see you all next year.